You're listening to the award-winning entrepreneur, O.D. Harris. We have a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about non-for-profits, and we may talk a little bit about a wealth, but you want to keep it locked right here. And do me a favor, share this with your neighbor. This is the award-winning entrepreneur, O.D. Harris, and today we have a special guest in the building. And I must tell you that this special guest, she is phenomenal. She is amazing. She's highly educated, and she come to bring that fire for you entrepreneurs and for those that are listening. Hey, everyone, put your hands together as we welcome Dr. Wright is in the building. What's up, Dr. Wright?
Hey, how are you? I am just great and excited to be here.
Hey, you gotta love the name. When your name is Dr. Wright, when you got the last name Wright, it just gotta be on point, okay? It just gotta be on point, okay?
Yeah, okay.
So I'm excited about having you as a guest, and on this show, we always love talking about entrepreneurship, just giving people life things, and we're just glad to have you on. So without further ado, I just want you to tell the audience a little bit about you. How did you get started? Just tell us about your background. If you want to tell us about your family, that's fine. You don't have to if you don't want to, but we talk all things business. So, we gotta have a little personal in there, but why don't you share with us who you are and what you do?
Okay, I am Dr. Barbara Wright. I am the founder of Certified Dream Builder, Inc., which was established in 2016, but I've been in business for years, a lot longer than that. A little bit about my background, I definitely did not come from a silver spoon. So those of you who say, oh, she might have did that, but I can't. Oh, yes, you can. I came from Plum Nelly, Plum out the country, Nelly out the world, behind the forest down in the Delta of Arkansas. And I had dreams as a young girl that made me know that there was more to see. And I held on to those dreams until I think my 8th grade year, where I wrote out what I wanted my life to be like. And I learned from that. Writing is powerful. So yes, my last name is Wright, and I definitely use that because writing was definitely powerful for me. Everything I wrote on that paper in my 8th grade year came to pass. So that kind of helped me get to where I am today, because I still write down those goals and dreams, and generally I see them come to pass. I do a lot more than just write them down. I actually put some legs on it, but that is who I am.
Yes, I love it. So you write it, then you manifest it. I love that.
That's yeah, that's why I have the manifest room on Clubhouse. Yes.
Hey, look, y'all better check her out on Clubhouse, because she drops those nuggets. And let me tell you guys, the reason why I'm so excited, because that's where I met Dr. Wright is on Clubhouse, and she was just dropping all those gems, and I was just like, wait a minute, hold up, back up. You gave us way too many nuggets. How do you stay so sharp? You do what you do, but how do you stay so sharp? How do you still drop nuggets? How do you do that?
Well, I'm a researcher. I cannot take credit for the information. Now, I do analyze the information, and a lot of times I will create another saying from some information that I've read or received from somewhere else in the past. In fact, I'm going to leave you with some information that I think is life-changing if you really internalize it. So what I have learned is, because of these great men that I have been brought in the presence of, so your gift will make room for you and bring you before great men. And one thing about it, I am not the only one that has a gift, because one thing I tell everybody is, if you look in your hand, you can look in your left hand or your right hand, and in most cases, there is no one else with your fingerprint. So you are unique. You have gifts and talents, and those gifts and talents will bring you before great men. And that's where I've gotten a lot of my information, is from those great men that I have come in contact with over the years.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a team around you, and it's good that you can acknowledge, because we need to do a better job of acknowledging where we get our resources, who's helping us along this journey, because we're just not doing life by ourselves. We're not doing business by ourselves. Everything that we have, we're doing it we're doing life together. Whether you're in school, you're doing life with your classmates, you're doing life with your professors, you're doing life with everyone that you're interacting with, and you need to understand that those people could play different roles in your life at different times. So it's like you have to do life with everybody. Now, Dr. Wright, you have a phenomenal business called Certified Dream Builder, and you can go to certifieddreambuilder.com right now, simply on your smartphones, or you can go on your computer. You can research it. It's phenomenal. But I have to ask you, what got you started with this particular business?
Basically, I loved business. And once I started my first business, it was a wrap. That was back in 1986. Now, some of you will laugh at this because the business was started from salvage. I was a secretary at an office at the time, and I was getting one of my degrees. I can't remember if it was associate's or bachelor's degree, but I was there working, and my husband had went out and found just a big pile of junk. This junk was on the street. It was somebody had set out some nice stuff. So he grabs this, and I'm feeling like I'm too dressed up for this. And we're riding around in this little truck that we had because we were poor and pitiful at the time. And in 86, and I was a little bit embarrassed, but I looked at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, we could do something with this. So he said, there's some more. Let's just go around and look. So we actually did. We went around looking. We found all kinds of stuff. And then what had happened a few days prior to that, we had signed a document to buy our first home. We had a 3 and 4 year old. We married at 21, so we was really young, didn't know what we was doing, but we were buying our second home. We already had our first home. We were about to buy our second home because our first home was bought in an area to where someone had jumped over my son's head and they had a gun in their hand. And I'm like, oh my God, we got to move. And so we signed this document to buy this home without even knowing where this money was coming from. I mean, we were, kind of young and pitiful at the time. But anyway, when he brought this stuff, I'm like, that's where the money's going to come from. So we took these salvage things, cleaned them up, fixed them up, took them to Swap and Shop. That was our first business. That was our first taste of business. And we raised that $5,000 to pay the down payment on that new home in 30 days. Off of that. So Swap and Shop was the beginning of it. And from there, it was a wrap. A child care center in 87. Well, child care home. I opened up child care in that home that we bought in 87. And then in 89, we opened up a child care center because somebody in the neighborhood called the state on us and got that closed down. So we ended up getting a child care center. Yeah. But they pushed us into a blessing. I mean, sometimes you complaining and everything about what's going on, and they ended up pushing us into a freestanding building, which I have to tell people this because people sometimes think, everything is just so hard. You're not going to be able to do things. Sometimes you just have to put yourself in the right place. I was working at my home center knowing that it was going to close. So I was out looking for buildings, and I found this building. I called the man. Did I have the money? No, I didn't. But I called this man and I said, hey, I'm interested in your building. I have a child care center at home, but I need to move it to a building. He said, I'll meet you up there. So I went up there, talked to him, told him what I was going to do, never filled out an application, never gave him anything. I told him what I was doing and what I'd like to do, and I left there with the keys that day. And I had that child care center in that facility for 16 years, and it was a very nice former doctor's office, which had been renovated and was perfect for child care. So miracles do happen. Sometimes you have to make the first step. I had to make that call. If I hadn't made that call, I wouldn't have ever gotten that building. And from there, a clothing store, strip mall, expos, award-winning inline mall store, all kinds of things happen from that salvage business.
But we have to take a moment because you said something that was a nugget. You said miracles do happen, but you have to take the first step. Is that what you just said?
That's exactly right. Miracles do happen, but you must take the first step.
Hey, listen, we got to have a rewind moment there, okay? Say that again. Oh my God.
Miracles do happen, but you have to take that first step.
Y'all need to tweet that, okay? Y'all need to tweet that. Some of us struggling, trying to figure it out. You need to take the first step. Get up out of your bed, get up out of your car, open up that cell phone, start calling your contacts. I don't care if they said no, just do a follow-up call and say, hey, listen, I know if you believe in your heart that this is your connect, you guys got to stay persistent. You can't give up. Hey, let me ask you something, Dr. Wright. How many dream builders do you meet? How many of your certified dream builders do you meet that they give up, that they have a self-defeating mentality because they've been trying to get their business. They're trying to get these, they're trying to come, because you help people write grants. You help people, you have the grant writing part, and then you help people develop their non-for-profits. How many people have you met that was in the process of developing their non-for-profit? They just said, hey, it's just too much. I just want to stop. I want to give up. Having that self-defeating mentality. How many do you meet? And then how do you talk them off the cliff? How do you get them back to reality?
That most people, a lot of people that come to me, they are almost on that edge. I have tried this on my own. I've done this or that or the other. But what helps them is to get a step by step. And that's where I try to start with them, is a step by step, so that they can really, what I call my discover, define, and then deploy your gifts. Because it's rather difficult if you have not truly discovered what it is. I tell them, if you can't say in 10 seconds what you're doing, then you don't know what you're doing yet, and you still need to get into that discovery mode. So when they do come, I would say probably 75%, this is their last straw. Mm-hmm. They come, and what I do is I help them with discovery. Discover what it is that you really want to do. Let's discover it. And then once you discover it, and some of them have already discovered it, but they haven't defined it. That, to me, is what causes people to fall off. They have not defined what it is that they want to do, and then deploy. And in that defining it, you are determining who your target market is. You're determining where you're going to locate. You're determining what those statistics are. A whole lot of things happen within that defining moment, but most people want to jump over that and go ahead and deploy. And if you do, more than likely, you're going to have to come back.
So let me ask you this. So what made you, out of all your success you've had in your other businesses, what made you say, I want to help non-for-profits. I want to help develop non-for-profits, and I want to help people who write grants for non-for-profits. I want to make sure I help them. Tell us a little bit more about becoming a certified dream builder. Well, tell us more about what made you start this particular business.
Okay, well, I would say it was probably starting the child care center, because the traumas and trials of opening that child care center, the first Black-owned child care center in that city, it was traumatic. It was traumatic because not only do you have to have your building, but your building has to be licensed by the state, which means that you have to have a kitchen in the state I'm in, your kitchen had to be licensed like a restaurant. So you had to have the 3-vat sink, the hand washing sink, and all of that. So basically, I could help a restaurant. You had to pass the fire department and the health department, the sanitation department. You had to pass every one of these people's inspections before you could actually open. So I learned about a whole lot of businesses just opening that child care center. I learned to do payroll. I learned to do curriculum. With the child care center, you have to do so many different things. So once I learned those, then people started asking me questions. Well, how do you do this? How do you do that? How do you do the other? Well, so that kind of started a little bit of free counseling. And after, a year or so, people spending all your time trying to counsel people, I started charging just $25. Well, $25 because people would schedule times and then not show up. So I charged $25. And later on, I found that $25 wasn't enough for them to show up. They might pay the $25 and still not show up. So I had to change over time. But I'll tell you what made me really start counseling. I went to the radio station, and I know this is kind of crazy, but those things are being manifested. So I went to the radio station to put an ad on for my child care center. And when I got to the radio station, they said, well, it's $80 for a minute. So I said, well, how much is 15 minutes? And they said 15 minutes is $75. I was like, well, give me 15 minutes at 75. I mean, it might have been $70 for a minute or whatever, but it was only $75. I probably said that backwards initially, but it was only $75 to do a 15-minute broadcast. I was like, well, give me a 15-minute broadcast. Now, Councilman Harris, I had no idea what I was going to tell these people in this 15 minutes. But I just knew, and this broadcast was going nationwide because they were on internet back then, and so it was going everywhere. And so by the time that Friday came, this was Wednesday. By the time that Friday came, my radio show, Business by the Book, was born because I had read a book called Business by the Book, and I loved the book, and I loved the fact that it was biblically based. So Business by the Book was born. I had a script. I had all of these things. I had come up with a song that I wanted to come on with. And this was the gospel station. So it was KPRT here, the station that everybody knows probably around the country and around the world is Hot 103 Jams. But this was the sister to Hot 103 Jams. So that's how my consulting began, because I went on the radio and I started telling people how to start small businesses. Because not only had we done the daycare by then, we had already opened a clothing store. We had been doing expos. We were doing just all kinds of retail and consignment. I had done consignment. So I had lots of different stories. And whatever I did not have, I researched, and I would be ready to give that 15-minute show. That's how I got started.
Wow. There's a guy on Clubhouse I like when he be like, boom, pow, Fitzgerald. I think that's what he's like. Oh, wow, boom, pow. Listen, you just dropped the mic. Wow. So, that makes your skill set capacious. And then I heard you dropped that book in there, but you didn't give us no context on where we can get that book. Is that available for sale that we can grab?
I believe Business by the Book is still available, but give me a second to come back to that one, because I'm going to research it and get his name, because I should give him his props, because he, even though the information was not necessarily from his book that I gave, his book inspired me, and I love the fact that it was the first really biblically based business book that I read. So I will get that for you.
You guys
make sure that they have it.
And we'll make sure that we add that to the website so that way you guys can have that resource. I got to say, honestly, I'm so excited just listening to this story, because this is the everyday story of an entrepreneur where we're bumping into things where as you move and shake, things do open up. And I love the fact that out of your belly, God gave you what you needed out of your belly. He's like, don't worry about it, I got it. And I think for entrepreneurs, we can't walk into our journey with an intimidation factor. When it's game time, you've been practicing all this time. You've been failing all this time. You've been having your shortcomings all this time. And now it's time for you to show up to the game. Listen, all the practices, all the failures, when it's time to do the big deal, you got to know that you know that you know, as they say, that you know that you know that you have the ability to execute and give the relevant information that's going to help you in your journey. So Dr. Wright, so you teach people how to write grants. Why is it important? What are some of the fundamental things we need to understand with writing grants for just for ourselves as a as a small business? I have a non-for-profit. I'm trying to go out there and get money. What are some? Just give me a couple of tips that you would give to a person who's trying to write grants for their business and cannot at this point afford a grant writer, and then maybe you can go into how can a grant writer be affordable? How much that costs? So let's start with the first question, which is, give me a couple of tips about if I'm writing a grant, if I'm looking at writing a grant, or if I'm looking at getting into that to help my non-for-profit out, what do I need to do?
One of the secrets that I tell people about grant writing is that the answer that you're going to get once you do actually write a grant, the answers, there's 3 answers: yes, no, or maybe later. So that's especially when I'm in my trainings, because if we get rid of that fear, nobody's going to come in you with a gun. Nobody's going to try to chop your head off. They're not going to call you a name in public or anything. They're just going to tell you yes, no, or maybe later. And in most cases, they're going to send you that in an email or in a letter. So you don't have to worry about being embarrassed to just go ahead and try to write the grant. The other thing I can tell you is that over the years, I have found that there are some commonalities in grant writing. And those commonalities are that there are 4 goals of grants. And that goal is to develop your collaborative. And once you've done that, then you don't have to do that again. And then you're going to use your collaborative to develop the project, which means that you're going to work together with some of that collaborative in order to deliver it. And then the third goal would be to implement that project, or to get it ready and to determine who is going to do what and, get it ready to go. And the fourth goal is to just do it. That's your kind of like the Nike, is to just do it. So you've got 4 goals for any grant, and that's develop your collaborative, develop the grant with your team, because everybody working on that team to implement this grant needs to know what that grant is saying and what you're going to do. And then the third one is to determine who is going to do what in the implementation. And that fourth goal is to just do it. And then you've got 4 sections on any grant. So there's 4 goals and 4 sections. And the section is your executive summary. That's your 5 W's, your who, what, when, where, and why. And then there's your narrative, which is the story. It just takes those 5 W's and expands it. So your executive summary might only be a page and a half, but your narrative might be 5 pages. Number 3 is your budget. Every grant has a budget. And number 4 is the supporting documents that the grant asks you for. So once you know those 3 things, is that there's 4 goals and there's 4 commonalities, and that you're only going to get a yes, no, or maybe later, then it helps people to get over that fear of trying to go after a grant themselves. And then lastly, I have the do-it-yourself fund development, where we have ebooks on our website, which you mentioned, the certifieddreambuilder.com. There are ebooks out there that helps make it simple. In fact, I have a series of 35 books, and on the end of each book, it's finally made easy, because since in the childcare, we learned to do those curriculums and curriculum development. I ended up getting a master's in curriculum development. So I learned how to do those curriculums. So I turn almost everything into a system or curriculum. So we do have those ebooks, courses, and we have an app on our website that can help some of you to do it yourself until you can afford to get someone to do it for you.
Wow, that is at certifieddreambuilder.com. Y'all better be running to the website and going and writing these resources down, because you guys, this is what we're here to do. We're here to give you some knowledge, some resources, some information. Some of you non-for-profits out there have been struggling. It's like, it's a nightmare. Where do I start? Where do I begin? This is one healthy resource that will help you even with those tips. Now, so for many of you guys may say, hey, you know what? That's too much money. It's just expensive. I need to know, Dr. Wright, get us right on the financials. I mean, because everyone out there is saying, hey, I can write $1 million grant. Hey, I can do this. I can do that. We probably need to know how much it costs, and keep it real. Are there people out there that can really do this type of stuff? Because it seems like we only been dreaming lately.
What I don't do is I don't promise anybody anything, because no grant writer can. So if you need to find someone who helps you by getting an intake form for you and from you and seeing if you are ready. What I developed is a 5-tier system that helps me determine if you're ready before I'm taking too much money from you and then discovering that you may need to be on that do-it-yourself track. Because initially I was taking everybody that came along and I was giving everybody an affordable price because I am a nonprofit. I started as a nonprofit and my goal was to give you the most affordable price. But then too, the laborer is worthy of his hire.
That's right.
And I found myself working exceedingly abundantly above, what I should have been doing. And I had to pull back and do a little differently. But I do have a 5-phase system.
So tell us about
that system.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us about the system.
Okay, that system is initial planning, which is where we do a feasibility study. We make sure that you have a notebook to put all of your documents in, hard copy and also electronically. We make sure that you've got your regulatory requirements and business credentials, your incorporations, your 501c3s, all the things that you need to do to get ready your business, a checking account and starting on your business readiness. That's in our initial planning. And then we have our phase 2, which is our branding system. Phase 3 is our collaborative development to where you're working on developing your partners. And phase 4 is where we're making sure that you have your finances together, that you are sustainable, because that's what these organizations are going to ask you about. And then our phase 5 is optional. That's where we make sure that you have a grant template that you can use over and over and over again. Because as long as you've done your developing, defining, and deploying, you're not going to be changing what you do. So you can come up with a grant template that will work for you. And then we teach your team how to do it. Now, that's optional. But the other 4 phases you must do in order to be ready for a grant. I'm not going to go through each one of them like I did the first one. But initially, you got to be ready. And then branding, your collaborative development, your financial development, and then the last one is where you actually write grants. You're not ready for writing grants until you've done the other 4.
So basically what you're saying is that, hey, if you're going to look for funding, you need to build a profile. You build a profile through this system that has your corporation paper, your tax ID, if you have a Dun & Bradstreet number, in making sure we have your 501c3 attached to it, making sure that you already have that prepared, ready to go, and then making sure that your tax filings is set in order, whatever that's going to look like. And then now you have it, like you said, discover, define, deploy. So basically you're having, you know what your non-for-profit is. You've already discovered what it is. You've already defined what it does, and you're ready now. You're in the deploy stage. And with that package, that allows you to basically submit grants, and you're probably tweaking some of the information that you may provide for them as they write out their information and making sure that everything is on solid board, including their website, including their board of directors. Now, I want to ask you this. You talked about development, that aspect of it. The development part of a non-for-profit is very, very challenging at times. And trying to develop, like your board, I only want to probably talk from the board perspective, because that's the thing that people just throw their mom and daddy, sister, brother in. And I need to ask you a question. Should we be doing that when we're starting? Should we just throw our mom, brother, sister? We're just trying, we're trying to get our 3 so we can get it going. But is that actually a healthy system by doing it that way just to get started? Or do we need to kind of think twice about that?
In most of business, you want to kind of do it like, I guess look at it kind of like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, you got to remember, I taught preschool, so I do everything basic. You want to make sure that whoever you put on your board is going to help you make a good sandwich. You don't want anyone who's not really in your corner, because if you put someone who's not really in your corner, they may vote you off the board, because you got to remember, you don't own a nonprofit. It is a public space. So unless you have an attorney or something, I'm not an attorney, so I can't give legal advice. I do document prep. I do 501c3s, but I do document prep. I am not an attorney. But so you may want to have an attorney to put together some bylaws for you that would protect you so you can't get voted off, but just know that you can be. So that's why you want to be careful, I would say, who is on that governing board, and then grow that board as you learn a little bit more and you know that you're the bread, so you've got your peanut butter and jelly in the middle that's going to make the sandwich. So you want someone that's going to support what you do and not hurt what you're doing. So that's what I would say about picking board members. If you produce tissue, then you want your board members to be toilet stool for manufacturers or somebody like that. You want somebody who's going to benefit from what you do. That's kind of how it is. So whoever you put on that board, make sure that they're going to benefit from what you are doing.
Well, you have been giving us a lot of information today. It's time for us now to get some free resources. Everybody, you guys are ready for these free resources that she's about to give out. Now, listen, you guys been listening very tentatively, writing notes, rewinding, sharing the podcast, sharing Dr. Wright's word, and you've also been writing down certifieddreambuilder.com. You're already on the site. You're already looking. You're already finding out who she is. You're already following her on Instagram, Clubhouse, and wherever you have just discovered where she likes to hang out. Now, what I need you guys to do, when you guys get ready to get these free resources, give Dr. Wright some credit out there on social media land. Come on, y'all. Give her some credit. Give her some credit. Let her know that you was listening to the Entrepreneur Report and you heard Dr. Wright share some wonderful free resources. And because we know that our entrepreneurs are not selfish and they do believe in sharing, because sharing is caring, we know that you guys are going to give out these free resources to others to help them along their journey. God put you here for a moment to listen to this. So let's not violate that moment by only sharing, keeping the information to ourselves, but also being a carer and giving it out to others. So, Dr. Wright, are you ready to give us some free resources? Now, before you start, I already know if you guys been to her website, she already have a free resource column, but I'll let her talk to you about that. But Dr. Wright, go ahead, hit us with some of them free FREE resources.
Alrighty. What I want to tell you about is worldometers.info, because worldometers.info basically tells you what you can invest in as far as your business and kind of what direction you should be going. It is a world clock. It tells you about the population. It tells you how many books are being sold. It tells you how many people are being born, how many people are dying. It tells you how many medicines that are being taken. It tells you, it basically tells you what the major is, what business to open. I mean, it gives you lots of information. Now, you are going to have to analyze what you're seeing when you go to worldometers.info. But to me, it is an awesome site to help you kind of open up your eyes to possibilities and what you should be investing in. The next one is bizstats.com. I love bizstats.com because it provides a calculator for you to kind of determine what your budget projection should be. I use it when I do business plans for people because it helps me to know. It's based on the industry, so it helps me to know what that industry budget should be. If that person needs $1 million, then I can put that $1 million in there and it will give me a budget. Now, since then, I've developed my own app, which provides the budget, but it's only on Android, so I don't even give that one very much. But bizstats.com will definitely help you. And the last one is for those who are somewhat intimidated by YouTube and don't really want to go to YouTube, there's another site out there, GCF Learn Free, that can teach you how to do some of the things that you need to know for productivity skills, like learning Excel, learning PowerPoint, learning some of those things. For me, I just jump on YouTube because I need to learn something really quick. But GCF Learn Free is free, and it gives you full free classes to where you can learn to do a lot of things to help you in business, to where you're not having to pay someone for everything.
Boom. I love it. I mean, you know what? This is what the Entrepreneurs Report is about. Dr. Wright, you know you brought that fire today. You know that, right? You know you brought that fire, right? You know we all probably hanging out. So. We're all hanging out at CertifiedDreamBuilder.com. I done said this so many times this episode because you know what? I am a big fan, a big component of information and knowledge, and I know that your website is filled with it. And I love the fact that you're willing to share. Now, all you non-for-profits out there that you guys need money for your non-for-profit, she has classes. I'm looking at them right now. And actually, there's a weekly Zoom class that she has for various types of non-for-profits that you can join and be a part. You can RSVP yourself on one of her Zooms. And I love the fact that they're already laid out. So if you need to write money for, if you need affordable housing, you need to go ahead, go there. If you are dealing with domestic violence, if you're doing something just for getting ready to write a grant, if you're looking to just, all the different things that you could write on, she basically has a class for it. And I'm sure there's probably way more depth. Now, we're going to have to make sure we following Dr. Wright, because when she has her in-live class instructions, we all about to take a flight when we're going down to that conference. Okay. But anyways, you guys can do this very simply right now through virtual technology. We can just go Zoom. We can hang out with Dr. Wright via the Zoom, and we can get all that knowledge and continue the conversation. This is the beginning, but we want you to continue the conversation by going to CertifiedBuilder.com. That way you can get more information about Dr. Wright. I got to honestly, you guys, I'm going to make sure that if you're listening to this podcast, just go ahead and write just look in the description. You're going to see her link right there standing out bold in your face, ready for you to click and make the download happen. So that way you can follow very easily. And Dr. Wright, I would like, if you could, please, I honor you for your presence, but if you could please leave us with the final words, a quote, something that you want people to really just latch hold to, whatever, however you want to. I want you to have the final words.
Thank you so much. I started my businesses from the kitchen sink, and they grew to award-winning ink. Every day has not been easy. I had lots of struggle in between. So just know that there are going to be some dark days, but light is just around the corner. So have faith and believe. So I want to leave you with this quote, especially in a time such as this. When the economy tanks, the money does not leave the planet. It changes hands. And so what you have to do is make sure that you're studying so that you are able to get some money in your own hands. Watch and pray. When the economy tanks, the money doesn't leave the planet. It changes hands.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Wright. With that being said, I can't say nothing but wow.